Good morning.
Morning.
How is everybody today?
Pretty good, thanks.
Good.
Is everyone on? Oh. Welcome.
Can y'all see my screen?
Yep,
Yes, we can see it.
and I think everybody's actually here too.
Okay, cool. I've reported this to Continia, but the only extension of your users that's working right now is the Metro Co. They thought they fixed it last night, but I just tried it again and it's still not working. Those with the extension of Metro Co, did you get an email,
Good.
Laura? Huh?
Yeah, I got it late yesterday afternoon,
Okay.
and I tried it, I was able to log in and all of that as well.
Okay, great. So we know that part is functioning. When they get these other extensions working, then I'll reestablish that. But I don't know if she did it in the production and not the test, maybe, because she sent me a picture of where she's fixed it. So I'm not sure what might be going on there. So you think we got everybody?
Yeah, I think everybody's on.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. So good morning. Let's go to our document journal. Where we left off last week was just talking about the document journal in general. That's a mouthful. Come on, respond. There we go. Anybody have a chance to come in here and play?
Not really.
It doesn't look like it. So every once in a while, my evil consultant side has to come out. I'm going to warn you, this is a difficult product it's got a really large learning curve. And if you don't get in here and start working with it, you will pay me to create all your templates, and that will cost a lot of money. I'm just being honest. You don't want that. You want to jump in here and learn how to use this product. So I'm going to encourage you this week to, even if you find 30 minutes, 3 days next week, y'all try to jump in here and start getting the feel of, marking these fields and things like that. So I did run across one that, let me see if I can find it again. Maybe it was this one. It looked like somebody had, started kind of working with. When I came in here, the date was here, the entity was here, but when I clicked on recognize fields, those fields did not repopulate. So I'm thinking maybe someone just typed the date in instead of asking the OCR to read it. I just want to make sure that we're actually asking the OCR to read it instead of typing it. I have been on some port calls lately of some folks that have had this product for a very long time. And because they didn't like get in there and practice with it and get that feel for it, they're just going in here and typing the fields, which is kind of missing the point of having the OCRs. So remember, in order to start kind of learning these fields, you want to be on the value field that that you want to learn, and then you use your left mouse button. And is it that maybe wasn't clear enough that it didn't read it? Yeah, something's definitely going on there. Oops. Did y'all just see that message come up on my screen, or was that just internal to me?
Yeah, we saw it.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that was. So this may have been why you typed it. It may, for some reason, not have read it. We don't have any translations going on, so we shouldn't be deleting it. So if I run into something like that, I try to find the header down here on this posting description. It's just a description field. So if I come down here and I mark the same field and try to figure out what it is that it's not reading. So it looks like to me it may be picking those ones up oddly. May not be. I'm going to remark the orange, which is my right mouse button, and then do the left, which is the blue. Yeah, it's definitely not picking that up. I'll have to do a little bit of homework. I'm wondering if it's I think y'all scanned copies, didn't you, instead of, wow, kicked me off. It's Friday morning, it doesn't like it. Okay, let's try this again. I'll have to do a little bit of homework and figure out why that's not reading in as the date. If I changed this to text, I bet it would read it. Yeah, it's not saying this. It thinks those are L's instead of ones, which is odd. But it may be the form that this was in. Which may be when you were working with it, why you typed it in. So I think we talked about this one being a header, just a header level amount, so that would come in and mark these amounts. So we've got total. This one give you fits all the way around. Yeah, it's just not reading those ones is what it is. Will you always get this invoice in this format? I mean, on paper, and then you'll have to scan it?
Yeah, we just scan it. We'll scan it. Yeah, we receive the invoice and then we scan it.
Yeah.
So invoice won't be like this when we first receive it. It will be much more clear.
Yeah, but when you scan it, it's like that.
Was this on colored paper?
No.
No. We may have to turn the, your scanners have different levels as far as the pixels that they'll scan. Often they're set real low. You may have to turn your scanner up where your pixel count is higher. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I believe our scanners.
Yeah. So if you turn your pixel count up, I'm wondering if we can maybe get this to read a little bit better. So let's talk about our user and our approval setups and stuff like that, as far as how we go about flowing this stuff.
Okay.
And then we'll come back if we've got some extra time at the end and create some more templates. That sound okay?
That's fine, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe I could. Maybe we could scan.
All right, let's go. I'm going to go back to my application setup. Let me make sure this is recording. It is.
When that vendor sees safety senses.
I'm sorry, were you asking me something? No? Okay. And I'm going to come back over to the Continia user setup where we were, and I'm going to edit this list. Now, we talked about, we kind of skimmed over this information last week when we were talking about users and things like that, but this salesperson purchaser is how Continia directs something to then, you know, start its approval process. And I know that some of your direction will be from a job itself. Talk to me about, you know, the various scenarios of how we want to direct an invoice to go out to the person that needs to approve it. When we get something that has a job number on it, we'll use that job number to establish who it needs to go to, correct?
Yes. Yes, that's the way it's.
Okay.
Use the overhead for the job number and that's what send it for
I'm going to shrink this down here real quick and go to a job. I thought y'all had it on the top screen here. So yesterday when I was in here working and everything, I did notice that a lot of your jobs do not have a person responsible.
Yes, correct.
This is the field that populates into go back to Continia. this approval flow field. And then from this approval flow field, when this document becomes a purchase invoice, it moves into what's called the purchaser code on the purchase invoice. So if I just open one of these up, you're going to notice that there's a purchaser code right here. And that approver flows into this purchaser code. That's then how Continia knows then who to push this forward to. Can you populate the person responsible on the jobs, or are you going to need to manually populate it in Continia?
No, we do have very few jobs that actually do have the person responsible listed. It's just not something we've historically done. So we can identify the person and add those in.
That'd be great. Yeah.
We might need to go ahead and get new homes involved so that maybe we can do like a rapid start or something to that effect to make it go quicker. But the LAPD jobs generally has somebody responsible for it.
Okay, cool. That'd be great. That way it's, you know, defaulted in, and then you can always change it if that person is different. But that being said, any approver that is going to be part of the approver flow needs to be added to this salesperson purchaser table. I think that's going to be a significant list, right?
Mm-hmm. So all the approval that added on the salesperson purchaser will be available to choose from the purchases code.
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
So let me come back here to our user setup. I'm going to slide this over.
And use for land, so different people have that. So this, I think, probably our master file where we put all the salespeople who approved, and then from there we can do which one. Okay.
Well,
So you can.
and let me do a snapshot here of this. Oh, I've got one. Okay. I'm trying to get this where I can add some of y'all to this list here real quick and show you then how we'll, okay, edit list. Come down here. I'm gonna add, I need to add some of the ones that, let's see. Looks like we're using the first letter and then last name. Oh, boy, I got that messed up. Fix that. Y'all are welcome to say, that's all right. It's renaming.
Then there is the
Oh, man. I should have just, it's doing a rename and it's going through all the transactions to make sure that Kay Andrews isn't anywhere else. Sorry about that. Y'all have lots of data. So while this is doing this, let's talk about, so the invoices that aren't associated with a purchaser, I mean a job, excuse me. How would we know who the purchaser code is for those invoices?
For the job number, the job communities, they have assigned superintendent for each communities.
Right. I'm talking about the invoices that are not associated with the job. Like the cell phone bill.
Oh, we do have somebody like assigned person to approve all those phone bills based on, like for example, Verizon. We do have a specific, if the Verizon invoice says there with specific communities, we do send it to the superintendent. We're assigned to the communities.
Okay. So you have like Verizon bills that are associated with each community?
Yes.
Okay. So that would have a job number as well,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Do you have any invoices that are not associated with a job?
We don't have a sample.
That's easy.
We do. Yeah, we do have the one, the safety, the sea safety.
We just work.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that one is not associated with job, but there are a specific person who assigned to approve that particular invoice.
So is it by vendor?
No,
Type
yeah,
of service.
type of service that they do.
Okay.
What example that we have also? The one that they only sign. What's the sample of the poll gesture? Poll.
Oh,
Research.
John Burns.
research marketing.
Yeah, like for example, we do have one vendor, John Burns, for the research marketing. There's one specific person that we send it that invoice to get an approval. The same thing with the safety, the sea safety.
Okay. Is that something you'll just have to establish when the invoice comes in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because we're gonna, as soon as we receive that invoice, we're gonna create a template, and that template, we're gonna put the coding and everything, and then we're gonna put the same person first at the same time, because it's always
Right.
gonna be,
It always
the
will be
same
them.
thing with the safety, it's always gonna be like, yeah, we're always gonna establish that, why we put it in. The only thing that we haven't gonna issue is, those are the overheads, those are the subdivision cleanup, those subdivision communities, so we have to send it a different. But specifically, most of the invoices that we receive, there is one assigned person to sign off on it. It's like, if you receive a sales, you always just gonna send it to Kate and Evelyn. It's always like that standard. So it doesn't matter whose vendor is it, as
Can you
long
have
as
more
the
than one?
sales vendor, it goes to Drew, goes to Keelan, goes to Evan.
Can we have more than one person, as the approver for the purchase code?
So you cannot have more than one for the purchase code, but what we can do is we can then share the information
Oh.
that we send to like Kelly. I can then share it with Laura and Philip. So, and I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a
Okay.
We do have for the land acquisition.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stu has to sign up.
It's a
Yeah.
contract. It's a contract.
Okay, so there's a couple of things that have to be said here when you're setting up a user. Last week I showed you how to, set up the Continia user and then come over here to the Continia user setup screen and you add that user ID. It brings in their name, it brings in their email. You then want to assign them a purchaser code and establish what their hierarchy of approval is. So this approver ID is who gets their approvals once it goes on top. So an example of this is, let's say that Laura is Kelly's approver. So Kelly can establish up to $1,000, but then Laura takes over and she can establish up to $10,000.
Here.
And then Philip would be Laura's approver. And he very well may be unlimited. So we set up these stair steps. So each person, if they are not unlimited, needs an approver.
Excuse me, Telka?
Mm-hmm.
Just to make sure, so if there is nothing under the approval limit, that means that they can approve absolutely anything with no limit?
If
Okay.
this check box is checked, that means they can approve anything without limit. If this is left blank and this is not checked, they can't approve anything.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
They have a limit, so you have to put the limit. It's beyond the limit.
You also have an approval administrator. You can set someone up as an approval administrator, which means that they can see everyone's approvals.
Mhm.
So if something, if 2 or 3 people are out or something gets stuck, I mean, it happens. It's not super common, but it does happen. And so you want to make sure you have at least one approval administrator, if not 2 or 3, that can, manage the approvals in case, something needs to be adjusted or changed. Let's set up some. Laura, are you actually a unlimited approver?
I don't generally approve much at this point, but you can put me in for whatever, just for the purposes of the training.
Okay. Well, we'll just kind of leave you. Well, I just don't know if Philip will be available, so let's make you unlimited and an administrator. And then we'll put Kelly as Rachel's approver. Oops. Oh, Telka. I was going in the wrong field. I need to add Rachel to the purchaser codes here. Let me slide this over. Let's see, RCRAWFORD. And y'all actually have. All right,
Hey,
trust
Delta,
it.
can I ask a question while you're doing that quickly?
Sure.
For the approval administrator, you say if that's flagged, that person can see everyone's approval workflows. But does that just give them the ability to see it, or can they like override it? And
They can approve them.
okay,
They can reassign them, that type of stuff.
okay. So that person effectively also, I mean, if you made that person an approval administrator, they automatically have unlimited purchase approval also, since they're the admin.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to understand that.
Yeah. Good question. We'll come up here and change. I'm just trying to get some various amounts in here. So, all right. So I'm sorry, this is Rochelle, isn't it? I said Rachel, but Rochelle Crawford. Kelly is her approver. She can approve up to $500. So if Rochelle is actually one of the ones that's working in AP, and the purchaser code ends up being Rochelle, then when she goes to release it, it will automatically release because it fits within her approval amount. It won't go to anybody else if she's the purchaser code and she's also the one trying to release it. If it's 500 and a penny, it would head to Kelly and it would end up in Kelly's approval screen. She can open it up, look at it, approve it, or reject it. If she rejects it, it goes back to Rochelle's approval area so that she has to review it again and potentially make some changes, whatever. So forth and so on. It just keeps stepping up the line. However, the goal here is, in the end, is that your folks out in the field will be your purchaser code, so that when Rochelle is actually working it, the purchaser code may be John Smith, and when she then sends it for approval, it then starts routing through John Smith and his levels and, you know, whoever his potential equal folks might be, and so forth and so on. So this will be a pretty good sized list from what I heard y'all tell me last week as far as how many users are involved. The catch here that you have to stop and think about, and I don't know if you fall into this situation or not, is that an approver only has one level of approval limit, so that you know, in some cases they can't have $1,000, and different cases $5,000. They just have one level of dollar amount. All right. As we were talking last week, after I set, any time I make any changes to this screen, I need to export these users. And it just sent another welcome email. Need to turn that off. I think that's on a setup. I've got it where it sends it every time. But don't forget to do the export, because if you don't do the export, the web doesn't know all these. They don't know the people, they don't know the information, they don't know it doesn't know the limits, that type of stuff. So be sure and, you know, export users before you leave this screen. Any other questions about this before we move forward?
Yeah, just want to make sure that this screen that we're looking at is for the approvers only, right?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Well, now I say that any user that's using Continia needs to be set up here. All of you need to be here too. You don't have to be an approver, but in order to be able to use the functionality, you need to be here.
Okay, but we just wouldn't have the ones that don't approve. We just wouldn't check the unlimited purchase, or we wouldn't have a purchase amount.
Right. And you wouldn't have the approval client. You wouldn't have the web.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Let me, well, we'll just go from here. All right, back to departments, my application setup, and my document capture. After we get our users set up, I did a little more digging, and we are able to do what's called approval sharing. So that when I send an approval, when I release a document for approval to John Smith, if he also has another foreman out on this property, Carol King, and either one of them can approve it, I can do what's called an approval share. So anything that gets sent to John Smith also gets sent to Carol King. Either one of them can approve it and it'll come back to you. Does that make sense? Somebody talk to me. All right, so when I set up my approval sharing, I'm going to come in and I'm going to choose my user ID. So I just chose Kelly. It'll come over and pop this in. And then I tell the system what user ID to share this with. So let's go to Rochelle. I have two different types of sharing. Normal means they get everything. Out of office means that they only get the email when someone's out of office. So on the web portal, there is a way for a user to sign into the web portal and say they're out of the office. And they would want to do that, like if they're going to be on vacation or something along those lines, so that, you know, they're not getting all these approvals, because if they're out of office, they don't get the approvals, or they'll come back to just a bucket full of approvals in their queue. But Normal will send out actually 2 emails or the document to both of their approval websites. You can also set dates of valid from and valid to. I don't think you want to set this, but you could. Let's say that you had a foreman that was going to go over to a property for a couple of months, and then he was going to go back to his property, and he needs the ability to be able to approve, you know, that new property's invoices while he's over there for 2 months. So you might redirect someone else's approvals to him as well, but only for those 2 months. So you could use the valid from and to. Use owner's limits and permissions. Now, I said earlier that you only have $1 amount permission for a user. So let's say that normally Carol King has a $5,000 approval limit, but John Smith only has $2,000. So when we're sharing with Carol the invoices that John Smith can approve, we may only want her in those situations to be able to only approve up to $2,000 for those invoices. So we can set it where the owner's limits and permissions pertain to these shared documents. Does that make sense?
Just to repeat, saying that if one has a higher limit and the other, they're not on the same limit,
Right.
if the other person would only be allowed to approve their limitation.
The owner's limitation.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
I can also forward the emails. If I don't check this, then all it's going to do is put the document in both of their approval queues. You probably do want to forward the emails. And then this copy to all companies. Y'all have a bunch of companies, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So you're you're gonna wanna,
Well, let's clarify that. I think we only have one NAV company. We have our entities set up as dimensions.
oh, you do? Oh, okay. I thought you had, for some reason, I was thinking you had a bunch of companies.
Laura, do you understand the difference?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, because we always just
Oh,
call
yeah,
it
yeah,
entity,
yeah.
so
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of somebody else. I apologize. I have one customer using this that when you click on companies, there are like 20 there. It's like slews. So I was getting that confused. Yeah, that's right. Because builders, y'all use the dimension, and that's y'all got the dimension balancing that John wrote. So cool. Anyway, you can populate this up with those situations that we should be sharing documents. So I'll go ahead and just leave this one in here as an example. And actually, I think I should probably have it the other way around, since, well, no, because Kelly is Rochelle's approver. But anyway, this is how we'll share with the folks out in the field, so that we can send to more than one foreman at a time. Now, let me just kind of reiterate that in this situation, Kelly or Kay McIntosh would be the purchaser code on the invoice. And when we release that thing for approval, she would receive it in her web portal, and so would Rachel, with Kelly's limits. I'll go ahead and turn the email on too.
So this is just a question, just to make sure I understand how it works. Can we add more than one shared user ID to an owner user ID?
Yes, so I could put, let's see, Kelly, and then I could go ahead and like, do you, Philip? And
I don't know, guys, if that's something we would use, but I just wanted to make sure we understood that.
yeah, so any invoice that has Kelly as the purchaser code on the purchase invoice, when we click on send for approval, Kelly will get it, Rochelle will get it, and Philip will get it. And only one of them has to approve it.
So if one approves it, will it show the other person who's on the list, and they will know that it's approved?
I think it just leaves their queue.
Just leaves you,
How
okay.
about in your case?
Yeah.
Or in that negotiation, two people approve it.
Because now it's approved.
Ask that. Because if one approve, how the other one will partially?
She said
approve
that. Oh, the
Yeah,
partial.
partial, so she have to approve her in that negotiation, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not. So for this one, Laura or Phil, when Roy's out, we'd have the owner user it would probably start with me, and then it would go to Roy, but then Denise, right? Is that what we're looking at for this?
yes, I believe so.
You here.
Okay, thank you.
Well, let's make sure we understand that. So are you saying that it would go to both Roy and Denise, and only one of them, either one of them would be approved, or you're saying that it needs to go to Denise and then she needs to take an action before it goes to Roy?
When Roy is out, Denise is Roy.
Okay.
And Denise would be the second approver of whoever.
Yeah, so we would, but Denise wouldn't That would only be in Roy's absence.
Yeah, because you're gonna put out office and.
Right, but this is where we would do that, right?
Yeah, but keep
Okay.
in mind that Roy's out of office that will drive that is
Mhm.
not from Outlook. He has to set his out of office on his user in the web portal.
Right.
Which we probably do for him. So in that case, would we put the ballot from, because he's out for longer periods usually? Is that a time where we would use that?
I think you're going to have to coordinate with Denise and Roy, because sometimes when he's quote unquote out, he's working remotely.
But Cindy, all of the times right now that Denise is kind of covering for Roy for approvals,
Mm-hmm.
technically won't need to as often anymore because now it's going to all be on the web. So Roy can access it from wherever he is.
Okay,
Versus currently they're doing it paper. So because he's not in the office, it's defaulting to Denise.
okay,
So now we won't need Denise's backup as often anymore because he can access it from anywhere.
okay.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think everyone understands that this is where it would be and how it would need to be used. We just have to, we may need to manage that for them, because Roy, you know, if we
Right.
work that way, we might have to do something, you know, if he doesn't do something he needs to in the system.
Yeah, so that's a valid point, that this out of office is not reflective of setting your response in Outlook that you're out of the office. So this is actually a flag in the web portal. Okay. So that's how we're able to set up those approvals, those approval flows and things like that. Let me move backwards here just a second. This advanced approval groups is not engaged because you cannot use approval flows or sharing if you're going to use the advanced approval groups. And at least so far, what I've heard from y'all actually want to use the approval sharing. So if you go, you know, looking into this and go, hey, this might actually, you know, do some of the other things that we wanted, we have to kind of choose. You either have one or the other. You don't get both. So I think your bigger desire for the way your approvals are flowing is through this approval sharing. Approval flows are when we want like 2 or 3 people, we want all of them to have to approve it. So you may have those situations too, where, you know, something needs to go, maybe some legal documents. I think you mentioned that last week, Philip, that, you know, you may have some legal documents that need to go to this person and this person and this person. All 3 of them need to see it. All 3 of them need to approve it. And we can do that through these approval flows. Your first person would need to be, you know, the purchaser code on the invoice. Just for grins, you always want to export your users after doing any type of flows like that, just to make sure that we've got everything covered. The web knows everything we've done, that type of stuff. And then we can go back to our documents. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
For the approval user groups, I'm going back to my notes from last week. So if we define an approval user group, we use that as the purchaser, then it will go to those people in the group and only one of them needs to approve it?
Now, the approval user group is used to set securities.
Oh,
It's used to set the permissions and things. So a user is part of a group so that they share permissions and that type of stuff. The user groups are not the workflow.
then why does that conflict with approval sharing? You said we could only have one or the other.
You mean
am
this
I confused?
advanced approval groups?
Yeah.
Because when we engage this advanced approval groups, the workflow pops straight to here instead of going through each level here.
All right. So advanced approval groups is, I guess I'm confused. I thought that was the approval user groups. So the approval user groups right above your mouse and advanced approval groups are two entirely different things.
Yes. So the advanced approval groups, what it lets us do is it lets us route things to approvers through like the dimension that's on the invoice instead of the job number. So I actually have a company that, depending on the dimension that's on the invoice, the department dimension establishes what user should get the approval. And that's done through the advanced approval groups.
So can we use both?
No.
So if we set up anything inside of advanced approval groups, it's gonna conflict with our other setup.
It trumps the others, yes.
What if we set up one rule inside advanced approval groups, but it doesn't conflict with our other rules? So say we have a dimension. I'm just trying to understand it. So say we have an entity dimension that doesn't have any jobs.
Yeah.
And is like a completely different operating division from everything else.
Mm-hmm. I can go back to Continia and ask. I've always been told that it's either or. And part of that is, if I go to my approval setup here, let's see, where is, somewhere in all of this is the advanced purchasing setup. And it's a checkbox that's, it's telling it one or the other. But I'll be glad to ask and see, if that's still a hard rule, or if it's just don't want to, create a conflict. So
Yeah, mainly, I just want to understand how it works so that we don't unintentionally create some conflicts. But if it works a certain way and that fits within our planned use, then
mm-hmm.
I want to make sure we understand it so we could take advantage of it. But again,
Yeah.
I don't want to think it works one way and then
Sure.
Causing a conflict later.
Okay. I'd say the information I got was straight from a developer, and but let me go back to the like our support desk and see, if they follow that hard and fast rule too, that it's one or the other, not both. So I was told, at least by the developer, if I tried to use both, that I could kind of create a loop that it doesn't understand. So I haven't tried it. I try to stay away from things that are going to cause me heartache. But I will find out. I'll make a note to find that out for you. So, any other questions?
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, let's go back over to our document journal here and create a document that we register, and then see it flow through and for our purchaser codes. So I'm going to edit the journal. Let's grab one of these that doesn't have a template yet. So what is this I'm looking at? Can you see it okay? Lincoln National Life Insurance Company. This may be an administrative type thing instead of
It's HR and HR and software.
okay. Would Lincoln National Life always go to the same improver as far as a vendor is concerned?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's for example, kind of show you then how we could flow our purchaser code from our vendor. So if I go to my vendor card, I've got the purchaser code on my vendor. So I actually could pick up, let's see if we go to Kelly with this. I can put my purchaser code on my vendor, and then it will populate into my template. So let's build a blank template for the first time. And so I've got 15 going on here. Let's see, do I have an invoice number at all? Let me make this a little larger because it's a little hard. It's probably hard for y'all to see.
There should be a approver, but not the purchaser.
Do we want to just use the coverage date as maybe the invoice number? This is the account number. What is this stamped here?
Well, you use a month.
You use the account number with the month behind it. Yes.
Okay.
You can use the list of that account number with the month behind it.
Okay, I can't pick up 2 fields for my invoice number. So
Would that be a manual to add a month and just use because we would always use the last of that account number, and we would just go for it each month.
okay,
Would that be okay, or?
sure.
Okay.
You'd want to do that at the very end.
Okay.
And you can just modify it after.
It's picking up the whole thing just because it's all strung together. But do you not want this this first part? You just want the 1476006? Okay. So I can create a rule here that tells it to ignore that. So let me slide over here. Actually, MA can just get rid of it here. Nope, it's not gonna let me do that. So I can come down here and translate. I'll put my cap lock on. VANMETRESR-BL- and I'm going to translate it to nothing. Say okay.
I think, do we, can you check that rule again? I think there was a typo.
Was there a typo?
I think so. METRESR instead of T.
Yeah, thanks.
Uh-huh.
Is that right now? METRESR-BL-. Yeah. There we go.
Oh,
And
okay.
then we can just add the month and year.
But she said do at the end.
Yeah.
Now,
We would add-
one thing that we can do, let's look at this. Let me go ahead and learn my date here.
Okay.
Do we want the 701? Is that what we want?
Yes.
Date, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to do premium due by and pick up the 701.19. Cool. If I come down here to my, you see how Kelly defaulted into here?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's because it came from the vendor card. If I come down here and put in my posting description, this same information, and I'm going to do that same rule that's going to take that VANMETRESR-BL- and translate it into nothing. Say okay. Recognize the fields again. So up here at my invoice number, instead of searching for it, if I create a formula that is my posting description, space, invoice date, let's see what I get. That didn't do what I wanted it to. It gave me the actual fields. There you go. Do you want a space in between them? Do you see what I did? Hello? Y'all there?
Sorry, we had muted it.
I thought maybe so.
How
If we wanted to add a space, would we just put it in that formula?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
You just
so
put-
either side of that dash, we would,
Should do it.
can you show, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, plus. Okay.
Well, I put a space in there. I don't think I have to put the quote around it. Let's see.
Okay.
I might actually, let's see. I'm deleting blanks. So let me pull the delete blanks off here.
Okay.
There it goes. So I got a blank in between them now. So I did a formula. What I did is I read my invoice number or this account number into my posting description down here, because I'm not really using it. So I read that into here. Not sure why I'm getting that space now. There we go. Read that into my posting description. Then I came up here, and for my invoice number, I did a formula where I used my posting description plus a blank plus my document date. And that's how I'm getting this. This is the type of stuff that I'm meaning that you just have to kind of play with it and get the touch and feel, you know, of what you can do with it. And there's just so much. You know, it's pretty amazing how much they've built into this thing. And you just have to go, you know, could I do this? Because honestly, when I realized that I can grab the two, I thought, oh, maybe I could do a formula and kind of build that invoice number for you the way you're wanting it. So,
so remember, everyone, when we talked earlier this week about the fact that, you know, that what we're going through right now and all of these changes are really for the OCR feature of Continia, right? Mm-hmm. So don't get overwhelmed by all of these options, because when we first start using it, you know, we're going to use the OCR as much as we can, but it's not a requirement because we can still manually enter everything. So these kind of really cool things that we can tell it to do will come in time, but we don't have to do all of that day one.
True. And it may be that I'm circling back with some customers that have been using it 3 or 4 months now, and doing this type of training again. And they've got, you know, they are using it, and some fields they're typing in, and, you know, they've just reached out and said, you know, hey, is there some way to get the OCR to read this? And they've got very specific scenarios, you know, of things that they just don't want to type anymore. And we've been able to figure them out, you know. So it's really kind of cool the way it's extremely flexible. But you're absolutely right, Philip. You don't have to use it 100% right out of the gate. So I would come down and teach my header the amounts, since this is not going to have lines. So right now it's picking up this amount due, but I think what we're wanting to pay is this current billed balance. So I'm on my value field. I'm going to use my right mouse button and mark that, and then my left.
Actually, guys, wouldn't we want to pick up the current period, because generally we don't pay balance forwards?
Yeah, we just current.
Right, the current
one.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I missed that part. Yeah, okay. It's not wanting to pick it up. You're talking about the 777340?
Well,
Isn't it?
right. On
Yeah.
this one,
It's a different
it's
case.
a little different of a case because it has an adjustment, so we would use that billed balance, but normally we would use the current period.
Okay, so the template should have the current period, and then if there's the odd adjustment like this one has, it would be a manual change.
Yes.
Correct.
See why this is not reading by chance.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's marked an absolute number. When I want to make this not recognize this anymore and redefine it, I can actually point anywhere on the page in a blank area and just hit my left mouse, and it'll relieve that definition so I can mark it again. I'm not sure why that's not. Let me come down here to the amount including tax, see if that's going to be a little more forgiving. It is not reading that dollar amount. Wonder if those sevens are giving us fits. Let's see, is the job number a text field? Oh, it's a lookup. I'm thinking these scanned documents, we're really going to need to get them on a better pixel. It's just not reading that for some reason. Let me go ahead and just type it in, 7773.40. 7773.40. So once I've got my mounts in, you can see all of my error messages go away. I could also here assign a job number if I wanted to, a job task, if I had any type of tax or anything like that. But once I am error-free, I can register this.
Yeah. Before you register that, if we wanted to put a memo there, would we put it here as well or after it's registered?
After it's registered.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've gotten my amount in and so forth and so on. And then here's where you would establish, your account number.
Yeah.
Is it a GL account number that it goes against?
No, it's the job. It's the French PR.
I'm sorry, it's what?
It's a job.
Oh, it is a job?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
French PR.
Well, you could have put that over on the template then. I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, you have to put it in French.
Is that right?
No, it's French.
Oh, okay.
F.
Give me the letters I should be typing.
Yes, FRNGEPR.
Very good.
At the bottom, the PR.
Ah.
Yes.
Thanks.
And then the job number is over here.
And then the job number is the one that starts with the 6. It's further
6.
over on the.
1660.
You mean the task number?
The job task number is on the invoice is the one that starts with the 6, but I can't see it. I don't remember what it is offhand.
Ah,
Yes,
69060.
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. My mouse does. If I accidentally touch my mouse with like my palm or something. 69060.
Right.
Cool.
And then the memo. We put them.
Right.
Yeah, when the developers have not gotten together on that job number yet, and I've asked them to fix that description when they do. So, all right. When I am ready for this to head out, see, here's my invoice number and all of that. I've got Kelly on here. If I send an approval request, we should send an approval to Kelly. I think I'm an administrator. Let me look. Yes. Okay, now I always get these screens messed up because they change the name of them in every version. So under approval request entries, as an administrator, I can see any of the entries that have been created. Now, I created one for Kelly and I created one for Laura. That's probably because of my sharing. But I can look at the document and I can actually delegate it to someone else if I want to. But I'm going to leave this as is. So Kelly, you should be able to go to, there's a screen called, say they change these constant, yeah, called approval entries. And for Kelly, she should have a document here and she can open it, look at it, approve it, reject it, forward it to someone else, so forth and so on. Once it goes through its entire path of approvals based on levels and shares and all of that, then it will release. It will be in a released state. Currently, I don't think I showed this to you. Let me go back to my purchase invoices. It froze up for some reason. Come on. Here we go. You'll notice the status on it right now is a pending approval, and it needs approval by Kelly.
Can you ask if they put it on hold? Like, for example, if the invoice, if for example we send it and it's pending for approval and the person who's approving it put it on hold, we will see the most current status.
Is there
yeah, for example, this one's pending, right?
Mhm.
What if Kelly decided to put it on hold, the approval process, like hold this invoice?
No, it's not gonna, there's only 4 options for status here. You'd have to see the on hold from the approval screen. Like the approval administrator could sit. From your perspective, it's pending approval.
So there's no way for us to be able to see this, the current status of the invoice. Only the administrator.
Well, if she puts it on hold, it probably would be a good idea for her to put some approval comments in here and you could see those.
Okay, so any comments, you can see it. If
Yeah.
there's-
Yeah, there's what's called approval comments, and you can see those. So that probably would be a good,
So they need to make sure they
what's the
put
word I'm looking for, process to put in place to, put comments on it. From the web portal, there's like this big box that your folks will see, and that they can type comments into. Here.
Also, how can we follow up this pending invoice for approval? For example, it's been a couple of days and we haven't heard back. How can we follow up if there's no comment at all? We didn't put any comment. How can we follow up?
Yeah, your administrator will have to do a follow-up. Or you can send them an email or something along those lines. I was thinking there was a, I'm not seeing what I'm looking for. I thought there was a nudge action here. In the normal workflow, there's like a nudge. I'm not seeing it here. Let me do that as a takeaway too. Maybe this version.
Take it.
I'll write this down just a sec.
Yeah.
How often are the approvers notified they have something out there? Or can that be set
emails
up?
the emails, we can schedule those to be sent out. We normally do that like once in the morning, once in the afternoon. If you want to schedule it, you can either send an email out each time something's released, which can really fill up a email bucket unless you want to do that, or we can set it up where we send an email, with a whole group. But if we do the whole group, then what happens is it shows them everything they've got open that needs to be approved. So it's on a queue of, whenever we want to send those out. How would y'all want to send out your emails?
We don't want to put it too much.
Not too
Yeah.
long. Maybe every few hours? I don't know. That we'd have to think about that one, talk. I don't know.
Yeah, talk about it. And
Twice a week or something like that.
No, that would be
week.
too, that's not enough.
Every other week.
How do we, how is that set? Is that global or by user?
We don't want to populate.
it is global. It is part of the, it's the approval email setup. And it is global. It's not by user.
So Rachel, why don't you have a conversation with some of the people who are going to be getting a lot of these emails and see what they would prefer. I would I would think it'd probably be better to schedule it and have it send out the group. But Telka, could we see a sample of what that would also look like? I guess we could do it in testing and kind of see it for ourselves, but
Yeah, I need to load that group template. Right now it's the individual one. But I can load that group template and get you an example of it. I like the group one personally because, of course, I don't approve anything for Western, so I don't get anything like this. But I would think if I were getting multiple emails into my mailbox, I potentially might could miss one versus one email that has a list of everything that I need to approve. And I can, they actually, if they click on the email, it brings up, it'll pop up the Continia web for them to sign into, and then they can see everything, but you can see, you get this one email with a list in it. These are waiting for your approval.
I would think that would be better, but Rachel, why don't you confirm?
Yeah.
Repeat that. We didn't hear that part, please.
So there's the option for the notifications for that's set globally. So it would be for everybody, that tells the system whether to send an email for every single invoice that's registered and sent out. Right. So anytime you would click, release or whatever the trigger is to actually send it for approval, it would send that person an email. So if you're doing like 100 invoices for, Stone Mill Corner condos, then they're going to get 100 different emails, one for every invoice. Or you can set it up where it'll schedule. I'm not sure exactly what the options are, but you can schedule it so it'll send one email at a certain time. And then that one email would include a listing of everything that is awaiting their approval.
That one's
Yeah,
better.
that's a lot better.
You would have a
Yeah, that's a
list
lot better
in
because
the web portal.
yeah, that's a lot better. Yeah. And
So
we,
I would think that the group email would be preferred.
yes.
But I think we need to kind of see it and then also understand like what the scheduling is, and then you guys need to determine how you want it to be scheduled, and so we'll need to know how you want that set up in order to finish the configuration.
Okay.
Yeah, so Continia actually has the group email as a template that I can import in, and then that sets that email to be that group one, and then we put it on a job queue so that it goes out however often you want it to, every hour or every 2 hours, or if you've got a heavy volume like that, you may want it to go out every couple of hours. If some companies just set it to go out in the morning and then like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. It's whatever, y'all need for your environment. So. Alrighty, so that's kind of the process of how it works. We're not going to sign on to the web today. We'll work on that one next week. But do we want to go back to the document journal and just work through some of the templates?
Can we interrupt a second?
Sure.
For those invoices that are POs,
like a sales.
how do we attach the POs the same way, or is that are we moving away from that?
No, that's a great question. I didn't realize. I guess I had not realize that we were dealing with PO lines too.
We don't, I think we'll have to talk about whether we want to use it more, but there's really only, I think, one of our departments that uses the NAV.
Yes.
That's a
Okay,
lot.
But I mean, I guess they do a lot of purchasing, so we need to understand how it works.
Yeah.
They might,
Sure. sure.
you might incorporate it with the WNet, you know. Yeah. Don't know. Maybe they move it. Maybe they get out from that issue.
So do they, let me ask this, the POs that they have, are they actually receiving those somewhere? Are they receiving those lines?
I don't think that, well, I guess let's talk, because I wasn't thinking about base, and I'm not sure that anyone from base is on the line this morning. Rachel,
Yeah.
so for our sales and marketing group, I can't imagine they're actually receiving anything on their POs. It's not like they're getting materials, you know, most of it is like they're purchasing advertising. Or they might be paying for some services or something related to the models. For base is definitely receiving materials, and Christina had asked about that last week. But I'm not clear on whether how they use NAV purchase orders.
Okay.
Rhonda's actually on the call. Would you be able to answer any of that?
Is she muted by chance?
Rhonda, are you there?
Oh. Try to put this one. There,
Laura, can you try and like ping her cell or something just to make sure she didn't step away from her desk? Or
So by template, so by vendor, I can actually do a matching of lines. Now I've opened the master template here, and how I got here, let me kind of back up, is when I'm on my document journal and I edit that journal setup card for the purchases, I can see the templates that I have built here for each vendor. I'm going to go into the master first, but the master, this master is what builds these individual vendor templates as you're starting to learn or teach the OCR what to look for. So the master is used to then build the individual vendors. So I'm going to highlight the master and go into it. And under the purchase documents, I can tell any of the templates to do matching for the lines. And I can match either on the receipt or the order or both. Now, the purchase order is normally, what I see, is normally on the invoice somewhere, so I can pick up that purchase order number and be able to, you know, match against that, or I can match against receipt lines. Once,
so you said it's either or both?
yeah, it can just look at the receipts, it can just look at the orders, or it can look at both to try to establish, you know, what it's looking for. Doesn't mean both have to be valid. It just will look at either the receipt or the invoice. Am I saying that where it makes sense?
I'm not sure any one of us really understands the impact of that fully,
Okay.
but I think we may want to have the flexibility.
Of either or, so setting the receipt or both. Once I do that, let me actually edit this journal. Any of these have lines by chance? Now, it looks like maybe this came from, there's an order here, our order number, or is that the customer's order? I mean, the vendor's order number.
That's the vendor order number.
Gotcha.
That's also coming through, that's for construction, which we wouldn't use for that department. We wouldn't use NAV stuff. That all comes through their order, which all go through WMS.
Gotcha.
Also, just to go back, Rhonda's having some issues trying to get her mic to work on her computer. But she said that they do receive inventory and non-inventory items on their POs.
Okay. Is there possibly any way to get one of those
Laura, could
set up so
her in?
that we could?
Sorry?
Can you conference her in on your connection?
Can I do that through the Zoom meeting?
I mean, how are you connected, through your computer?
Yeah, I'm through my computer, and right now I'm just using Skype to type back and forth to her.
I don't know. You could try connecting to her on Skype and see if she can hear it and talk back.
Because she can hear us, we just can't hear her.
Maybe call her on your cell phone.
Is she on a laptop by chance? Or yeah, she could call in with her cell phone.
Oh, that's right. So there's the number in the...
In the meeting. See if I can pull it up. So here's our meeting. Here's the phone number right here. So she should be able to get in with this.
Okay, I think she's trying it right now.
Cool. So I'm just going to do a recognize fields here to get this thing to build a template. And did I pick up the right vendor? This UNI 022 United Site Services, is that right?
That's a construction invoice, but that's the correct number, yes.
Okay, cool. Great. That's always the first goal. Make sure you've got the right vendor. Because if you go forth with the wrong vendor, Continia will always try to go back to that wrong vendor, and you don't want to do that. So always check that first and make sure that our template picked up the right vendor. So, alrighty. So when I created my template, you'll notice this match lines came on.
Rhonda, were you able to join us now?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
sometimes those monitors on the laptops and stuff, if you have, I mean, the laptop microphones, if you've got multiple monitors, the monitors kind of trump the audio stuff. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be it.
yeah. So I think Philip was saying that y'all actually create POs.
Yes.
Do you receive against those POs prior to the invoicing?
Yes.
Okay.
When
Cool.
for our inventory items, when they come in, we go ahead and receive them. And then sometimes I don't have the invoice yet, so we have to wait for that to come in to do the invoicing. And
Right.
then our non-inventory items, we can just some stuff we receive at the same time that we invoice, and other things we receive ahead of time. It depends on what it is.
Okay. So I know this isn't one of those invoices, but I'm kind of talk through what you would be looking for. And it'd be nice if we could maybe in the test environment for next week, create a purchase order for an invoice that you have. And like I say, in the test environment, so we're not going to be messing with your production at all.
Okay.
Now this is test, isn't it? I'm not in your production, am I? No, I know I'm in test because we've got all these documents. But you would create the purchase order that you have an invoice for.
Okay.
Go ahead and receive the lines and send the invoice to the email address for the OCR.
Okay.
Okay?
We'll have that ready for next week then.
Perfect.
Great.
So let's
Thank
kind of
you.
talk. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Let's kind of talk through what this will look like then. Once I do the recognized fields and I have a template number here, this icon match lines comes on. In my template itself, once I tell it that I'm going to have lines, and I have told the master that I want to do matching on either the receipt or the order, I can tell the system then, am I going to match the order number, and I'm going to match the item number, the quantity, and the unit cost, or any combination of these fields that are on the line, on either the header or the line. So your order number potentially would be your PO number that's on that invoice. Do they send the PO number that is associated with the invoice?
Yes, most of the time.
Okay, that's awesome. So we could match by the order number, and then we can say, you know, we want to match by item number always, or if present, the quantity, you know, same situation, or the unit cost.
Okay.
So once I have those set, then on my template that is associated with this vendor, when I drill into this match lines, I'm going to see receipt lines and purchase order lines that are available in my system. Now, right now, I don't have anything that's, you know, really available because nothing's matching up on me. But I can then do a, tell the system to do the perform the match based on the information that I have given the lines, or I can do a manual match.
Okay.
And so, and then once I've matched those lines to my invoice, when I create my invoice, it pulls those receipt lines into the invoice, just like I don't know how y'all use your PO receipt lines right now. There's actually two ways in NAV that you're able to do that. You're able to create the invoice from the purchase order, and it allows you to, any lines that are received, it'll then create an invoice from the purchase order for that.
Okay.
Do you create the purchase invoice from the purchase order?
Not on the inventory item.
Okay. So do you do the other route where you go create a purchase invoice and pull those receipt lines in?
We usually do, for non-inventory items, we would just do a purchase invoice, most things anyway. We would do the purchase invoice and then I just manually add them in.
Okay, so say that again. For inventory items, you do what?
For inventory items, it will have a PO for inventory items.
So how do you create the invoice for items? What's your process? If you were to get an invoice in that has items on it and you need to pay that invoice, how do you get that invoice in NAF?
I just pull up the PO and then manually enter all the information and then post it.
Okay. So you do it, you create the invoice from the PO.
Yes.
Okay. So what Continia is going to do is use the other process. It actually matches up with the PO, but it doesn't create the invoice from the PO. It creates an invoice and then pulls the receipt lines into that invoice.
Okay.
If you're not doing that process, I realize it's kind of an unknown, but we'll walk through that next week after we have a sample for you so you can see what it's doing.
Okay.
Does that answer your questions, Philip?
As long as Rhonda is comfortable with it, I'm fine. I just wanted to make sure that since it's kind of a unique thing that only base does, I just wanted to make sure that they understood how the system worked and you had some feedback from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone else was asking about the lines process.
That was Cindy, because we used purchase orders for our marketing division as well. But there's no, to my knowledge, there's no receipt for that.
Correct.
So when you get an invoice for your marketing POs, how do you create an invoice to pay that invoice?
We do the PO is a NAV, and we just we put the PO and it does a job purchase invoice.
Okay, so you go to the purchase order and
yes.
Mark the lines that you want to invoice, and then you're actually doing a receipt and invoice at the same time. You just probably don't realize it.
Right, because most of the POs that we receive are geared to the invoice, so it's usually nothing that's left over on the PO.
Oh, okay. It's normally in full.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Telka, so now it creates an invoice separately and then matches it to the purchase order.
Yes.
Do you know, are you familiar enough with that to tell us how that is going to be different for our process, and if it causes any concerns with, like, if the PO is not fully matched, does it cause any is it really like 6 of one, a half dozen of the other, or is there really an impact for doing it one way versus the other?
So that's a great question, because there is an impact when you do, when you actually pay that invoice from a purchase invoice and pull the receipt lines in. First off, NAV is not going to let you pay for something you haven't received. So there is a stopgap there. Just like on the PO, it's not going to allow you to pay for something for more than what you've received. That's unless y'all have a modification around that, which I don't know about Builder. I can ask John.
Well, I think for POs, we're just using core nav.
Okay. So that stopgap still remains. However, today, when you actually create an invoice from that purchase order, like you were saying for the marketing, it's fully fulfilled. After you post that invoice, the PO goes away.
Yes,
Yes, it does.
The process of doing the purchase invoice and pulling the receipt lines in does not clear that PO. So don't panic on me yet. There's a process called delete invoiced purchase orders that we then have to come in and run. Either you manually running it or us putting it on a job queue that goes through and says, oh, these POs are fully invoiced by pulling in receipt lines. We can delete them now. Because the PO does reflect the fact that we've created the invoice, you'll see it on the PO. It just doesn't take it out of the list. So, to your question, Philip, if, using Continia, this is the way Continia works. It creates the purchase order the purchase invoice and pulls in the receipt lines, so we don't really have an option. If we're not using Continia, the way you're doing it is always the most streamlined, because it's eliminating the PO after it's fulfilled. But this process does do that for you. It's just using Continia, we don't get that streamlined process. So
if we do it through Continia and it goes to the invoice, will it note the PO number on the invoice?
yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's we just want to make sure that the PO also going.
Any other questions about that?
No, we're good.
We just wanted to set out.
Thank you.
If you wanted to do a similar situation with one of the marketing invoices next week, if you want to create the PO and for a marketing invoice that you have on hand, then put the PO in the system and then read the marketing or send the marketing invoice through the OCR, then we might can look at that one as well.
Okay.
Because the web portal's not going to take all of next week. So also, could I talk you into doing me a favor? These couple of invoices that we read in, this safety environmental and then this not that one. This safety environmental that I couldn't get it to pick up these numbers. Would you mind putting this back through your scanner at a higher pixel and see if that fixes that issue? And maybe let me know before next Friday, because I'd like to test it.
Yes, we can send one.
That would be great.
Sample one. I just sent it.
All right, before we leave, I'm going, again, please, please, please get in here and just kind of start playing with it. You'll enjoy, it does, I don't want to say it's frustrating. It's not necessarily frustrating. It's just, you know, kind of learning how to handle the right and the left mouse buttons and things like that. And, you know, you've got to get the feel of it. It's kind of like knitting, which I don't know to do. I don't know how to do, but if I were to pick up 2 needles and yarn, I'd have a mess until I figured out how it works, you know? So, but it's really, really a cool product. You just have to get the touch and feel of it. So, see if you can't, you know, find some nuggets of time next week to kind of get in there and start playing with it, if you don't mind.
Rachel, if you can find some time for the team, maybe it would be a good idea for you guys to reserve a conference room for like a 2 to 3 hour block, and just, you know, pull it up under a user and kind of, you know, walk through some of how it works, and together you guys can talk about, you know, issues that you run into, or, you know, maybe help each other, or if you have questions, just take notes so that we can follow back up with Helga. And I would suggest maybe doing that, you know, each week for a little while going forward, just so you can really get comfortable with it.
Okay.
Sounds great. I know you're trying to do already a 45-hour-week job, and then you throw an implementation in there on top of it. It's like, ah! It's the worst part of my job is when I start an implementation, I know I'm about to turn your world upside down. So, so thank y'all for your time today. I will, when this recording translates, I'll send it to Laura so she can distribute it out. And you should have last week's as well, so if you need it.
Yeah, I'll send out an email with both last week's recording and this week's, just so they're all together.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Y'all have a great Friday and great weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Which, let me just, I can't,